My beloved brothers and sisters, life was never promised to be easy. From the moment you enter this world, you are surrounded by trials. Allah never said the path would be simple, but He promised that for every hardship, there is ease. This life is not the destination, it is the examination room. Every tear, every struggle, every delay, every pain, it all has meaning in the eyes of Allah. And if you remember that this life is a test, you will stop asking, why me? And start saying, try me, Ya Allah, with patience and faith. Because through every test, Allah is refining you, preparing you, and drawing you closer to Jannah. When we face hardship in life, it's very easy to assume that we are being punished, that we've done something wrong, or that Allah is angry with us. But in reality, one of the greatest signs that Allah loves a person is that He tests them. It is through those tests that He refines the heart, cleanses the soul, and strengthens the faith. Allah does not test those He has abandoned, He tests those He wants to elevate. Many people wrongly associate ease with the favor of Allah and difficulty with His displeasure. But the truth is the opposite in many cases. If life is too comfortable and free of any struggle, it may mean that we are being left to our own devices without any divine wake-up calls to return to Him. When Allah loves someone, He gives them reminders, and the strongest reminders often come in the form of trials. Just like a teacher gives a test to the student he believes is ready to be challenged, Allah gives tests to those He knows have the strength to bear them and grow from them. The Prophet Muhammad said, when Allah loves a servant, He tests him. This hadith is not just a statement, it's a lens through which we must view our entire life. Every hardship, every delay, every setback, and every disappointment may be the evidence that Allah is paying close attention to us. It may be the way Allah wants to bring us back to Him, the way He wants to polish our souls and guide us toward Jannah. If Allah didn't care, He would leave us in comfort, distracted by the world, unaware of the hereafter. But when we are tested, our hearts become soft, our egos are broken, and we begin to turn to Him with sincerity. That turning itself is a mercy. The pain is a mercy. The heartbreak is a mercy, because through it, we remember who we really are and who we belong to. We see this in the lives of the prophets themselves. Were they not the most beloved to Allah? And yet, they were the most tested. Prophet Ya'bun, if he lost his wealth, health, and children yet remained patient and faithful. Prophet Yusuf if he was betrayed by his brothers, thrown in a well, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unjustly, but never lost his faith. Prophet Ibrahim, he was tested with his family, his homeland, and even commanded to sacrifice his son. If tests were a sign of Allah's anger, why were these noble prophets tested so severely? The answer is that their tests were signs of Allah's love. He tested them to purify them, to raise their ranks, and to show us how to respond with patience, faith, and trust in our own lives. The tests may not be as dramatic, but they are just as meaningful. A broken heart, a financial loss, a family problem, an illness. These are all part of the divine curriculum. Allah does not look at what happens to us, but how we respond. And in that response is where we either pass or fail the test. But the test itself is a mark of closeness, not distance. Even when the test feels unbearable, even when you cry at night and wonder why it had to happen this way, even when you feel alone, know that this is the moment when Allah is the closest to you. The pain you feel is not random. The loss you suffer is not without purpose. Allah is watching, listening, and preparing something greater. We are taught in the Quran, do people think they will be left alone after saying we believe, without being tested? The test is part of faith. It separates the true believers from those who only say they believe when things are easy. A person may think their iman is strong, but until it is tested, they do not truly know. That is why tests are necessary. They reveal the unseen strengths and weaknesses of the heart. They show us how much we rely on ourselves versus how much we trust Allah. They show us whether we seek His help first or only when we've exhausted all other options. They reveal whether our faith is rooted deep or just sitting on the surface. And they bring out a version of ourselves we would never discover without being pushed by difficulty. In reality, tests are a divine gift. They are uncomfortable, painful, and sometimes overwhelming, but they come from the one who knows what we need better than we do. They come from the one who created us, sustains us, and never burdens a soul more than it can bear. When Allah tests us, He is not trying to break us but to build us. He is not trying to hurt us but to heal us. He is not turning away from us, but rather turning us back to Him. The test is not the problem, the test is the bridge. It connects us to our Creator, refocuses our purpose, and teaches us that true peace doesn't come from a life without problems, but from a heart connected to Allah in every situation. Every hardship a person faces in this life carries within it the potential to unlock incredible spiritual growth. Often, we view difficulties as interruptions to our peace, obstacles in our path, or punishments we cannot understand. But in truth, these very hardships are part of a divine design to awaken something greater within us. They strip us of the illusions we hold on to and force us to see reality clearly. They reveal the fragility of this world and remind us that true strength lies not in what we can control, but in what we surrender to Allah. When we are tested, when everything we once relied on begins to fall apart, that is often the moment we start searching inward, reaching upward, and understanding that peace is not found in circumstances but in submission. Spiritual growth rarely comes during comfort. A person at ease can become heedless, distracted, and complacent. But hardship has a way of shaking the soul. It brings you to your knees and opens your heart in ways no blessing ever could. Through hardship, the arrogance of the ego begins to fade. Pride is replaced with humility. Dependence on creation transforms into reliance upon the Creator. Every tear shed in a moment of pain can water the seed of a man in your heart. Every sleepless night spent in worry can become a night of prayer and connection. Every loss can become a path back to what truly matters. The discomfort we feel is not to destroy us, but to detach us from what we were never meant to hold on to permanently. When the heart is tested, its hidden diseases come to the surface. A person may think they are patient, but it is only through delay and hardship that they realize what true patience looks like. A person may believe their faith is strong, but it is only in moments of despair that the depth of that faith is measured. Hardship reveals whether we worship Allah for who He is or only for what He gives. It shows us whether our prayer is a ritual or a refuge. It uncovers the sincerity of our intentions and the resilience of our belief. And in that process, it offers the opportunity for real transformation. Allah, in His wisdom, does not allow any pain to go to waste. He uses trials to clean the heart, to realign our path, to purify our intentions, and to elevate our ranks. The believer who understands this begins to look at hardships differently. Instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "What does Allah want me to learn from this?" Instead of resisting the pain, they embrace the lesson. And in doing so, they grow. They become more aware, more conscious of their actions, more devoted in their worship, more compassionate to others, and more grounded in faith. The same person who once feared loss begins to find security in Allah alone. The same person who once chased the world begins to seek Jannah as the ultimate destination. There are countless examples in the lives of the righteous that show how hardship became the turning point for spiritual growth. Some people found their way back to Allah after a financial collapse reminded them that wealth is temporary. Others discovered the sweetness of dua in the middle of a long illness when no doctor could provide relief. Others became charitable, kind, and humble after experiencing humiliation or failure. What they once considered a curse became the cause of their closeness to Allah. This is the wisdom behind many of the trials we go through. The temporary discomfort gives birth to a permanent change in how we live and who we are. Spiritual growth is not measured by how many books we read or how many lectures we attend. It is measured by how we react when life doesn't go our way, when we are tested with fear, hunger, loss, or pain, and we still choose to pray, still choose to trust, still choose to do good. That is where true growth lies. Even the smallest acts in hardship carry great weight. A whispered dua, a held-back complaint, a tear shed in sujood. These are the signs of a heart transforming. And as the heart transforms, the soul begins to taste the tranquility that comes only from being connected to Allah. The wisdom in hardship is not always seen immediately. Sometimes the growth is slow, hidden, and subtle. It may take months or years before we realize how much we changed because of that one test. But Allah sees every step. He sees how you fight the negativity in your mind. He sees how you keep trying even when you feel like giving up. He sees the effort, the struggle, the quiet patience. And it is through this process that the believer is shaped, molded, and elevated. Hardship becomes the training ground for spiritual strength. It breaks what needs to be broken, heals what needs to be healed, and teaches what cannot be taught through ease. It is not an interruption to life's journey, but part of the journey itself, a powerful means to draw closer to the one who created us and knows us better than we know ourselves. In times of hardship, when the weight of the world presses heavily upon our shoulders, the believer is not left without tools. Allah, in His infinite mercy, has given us two of the most powerful and transformative sources of strength, patience, and prayer. These are not passive responses or acts of desperation. They are active, deliberate choices of the heart and soul that reconnect us with our Creator, anchor us during the storm, and elevate us beyond the limits of our own human capacity. Sabr and salah are not just mentioned as virtues. They are commands from Allah and lifelines for those who are drowning in pain, confusion, and loss. Patience is not simply waiting for something to pass or accepting things reluctantly. It is a powerful act of worship. It is the strength to stay firm when your heart is breaking. It is the ability to maintain your faith when you don't understand the plan. It is saying, Alhamdulillah, when everything inside you wants to complain. True patience is found in the moment the calamity strikes, in the initial wave of pain, shock, or anger. That is where the believer is tested the most. Will you lash out, will you despair, or will you hold on to Allah's promise that, indeed, with hardship comes ease? Patience is not weakness. It is strength. It takes great strength to be silent when you are misunderstood, to forgive when you've been hurt, and to trust Allah's wisdom when everything seems to be going wrong. Prayer is not just a ritual performed 5 times a day. It is a sanctuary, a healing space, a direct conversation with the one who understands every ache of the heart. In your sujud, when your forehead touches the ground, you are physically at your lowest position but spiritually at your highest. In those moments, you are closest to the most merciful. The tears you shed in sujud are not wasted. They are collected by the angels, known only to Allah, and they purify your soul in ways you cannot imagine. Prayer realigns your focus. When you stand before Allah, the burdens of the world seem smaller. When you raise your hands in dua, you are admitting your need, your weakness, your total dependence. And in doing so, you are empowered. The Quran doesn't just mention patience and prayer randomly. It connects them together for a reason. Allah says, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. This verse is a divine formula. Patience keeps your heart stable, while prayer keeps your connection to Allah alive. Together, they give you the resilience to endure and the perspective to trust. It is through this pairing that many of the prophets overcame their greatest trials. Prophet Ayyub bihi fi, in his long years of illness and loss, remained patient and turned constantly to Allah in prayer. His story is not just about suffering. It is about unwavering trust in Allah and the healing that comes when one holds tightly to sabr and salah. In our daily lives, we may not face the trials of the prophets, but our struggles are real and painful. Sometimes the burden is emotional, loneliness, betrayal, or heartbreak. Sometimes it is financial, debts, poverty, or the fear of not having enough. Sometimes it is physical, illness, fatigue, or long-term suffering. Whatever form it takes, the answer remains the same: patience and prayer. These are not only tools for survival, they are means of transformation. Through them, a person rises in rank, sins are forgiven, hearts are purified, and new strength is discovered. It is in those quiet moments before Fajr, when the world is asleep and you raise your hands in dua, that your soul begins to heal. It is when you resist the urge to complain about your kedra and instead say, Wa Allah, I trust you, that you begin to grow. It is when you perform wudu while crying, not because of physical impurity, but because you need a spiritual reset, that your heart begins to soften. These are the private victories that no one sees but Allah, and they carry more weight than we know. Sometimes people ask, how can I keep going? The answer is simple, though not easy. Turn to prayer. Hold on to patience. They may not change your circumstances immediately, but they will change you. And once you are changed, once your heart is stronger, your faith is deeper, and your trust in Allah is unshakable, the hardship itself loses its power. Because now you are not facing it alone. You are standing in the company of the most merciful, armed with sabr and salah, trusting that every hardship has a purpose, and every tear is seen by the one who never turns away from his servants. Success in the test of life does not depend on what happens to us, but how we respond to what happens. It is not the situation that defines a believer's strength, but the reaction to that situation. Many people look at ease, wealth, or health as success, and they view loss, illness, or difficulty as failure. But in the sight of Allah, the reality is the opposite. A person may have everything this world offers yet fail in the eyes of their Creator, because their heart remains distant, ungrateful, arrogant, or heedless. Another person may be surrounded by trials, struggling every day, yet remain patient, grateful, and humble, and such a person could be among the most beloved to Allah. The true success is not in how much you are given, but in how well you remain connected to Allah through what you are given or taken away from. When a trial comes, a believer has two paths. One leads to despair, frustration, and questioning Allah's wisdom. The other leads to growth, trust, and increased nearness to Allah. The trial itself is neutral. It is simply the environment created to reveal the state of your soul. What makes the difference is the attitude you choose. Will you surrender to the negativity, or will you choose to rely on Allah, to seek lessons, and to respond with faith? Even in the worst situations, Allah has given us the power to choose our response. That power is what defines our spiritual success. We may not control the events around us, but we do control how we process them internally. The stories in the Quran consistently show this principle. Take the story of Musa UDTEOVWTCC, when he stood at the sea with his people, and Pharaoh's army was approaching from behind. The situation seemed hopeless. The people said, "Indeed, we are overtaken." But Musa responded with absolute faith, "No, indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." The sea was the same for both the panicked followers and the calm prophet, but their reactions were worlds apart. Musa's response became a model for all of us. Even when everything around you is falling apart, your trust in Allah can turn your trial into a miracle. The situation did not change first. The response did. The same is true in the story of Hajar, running between Safa and Marwa with her infant son Ismail, searching for water in a barren desert. There was no sign of relief, but she kept running. She didn't stand still. She didn't give up. Her reaction was one of trust and effort, and it is that response that Allah honored by making her actions part of the rites of Hajj. The water of Zamzam didn't appear because of the location. It appeared because of her response. Allah blessed the moment, not the place. When we understand that our reaction is what matters most, we begin to take ownership of our spiritual journey. Instead of asking why something happened, we begin to ask, what does Allah want from me right now? How can I please Him in this moment? Whether it's remaining calm in a moment of anger, choosing to forgive when wronged, holding our tongue when tempted to backbite, or continuing to pray when we feel spiritually low, these are all reactions that carry tremendous weight. They are the real battlegrounds of the soul. Allah is not looking for perfection in our situations. He is looking at the sincerity in our responses. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed and say, "I can't take this anymore." But even in that moment, if we turn to Allah and cry out to Him, rather than turn away, that is a successful response. Even if we're struggling to stay patient, even if we're tired and barely holding on, the fact that we're still calling upon Him, still trusting Him, still doing our best, that is success. Because success is not about having everything together, it's about staying sincere in our efforts, no matter how broken we feel. In daily life, this principle can transform our perspective. If someone wrongs you, and you choose to forgive for the sake of Allah, that reaction becomes a means of purification and reward. If you're hit with a delay in your plans, and you respond with gratitude and patience, you've just passed a test that could raise your rank in the hereafter. If you fall into sin but immediately repent and renew your intention to improve, you've responded with humility and hope, the very traits that Allah loves. Each reaction is an opportunity. Each moment is a potential door to Jannah. Life keeps unfolding in ways we don't expect, but our responsibility is to respond in ways that reflect our belief, our trust, and our commitment to pleasing Allah above all else. Allah, in His perfect wisdom and mercy, never places a burden on a soul more than it can bear. This is a truth that is repeated in the Quran and deeply rooted in our belief system. It is not just a statement of comfort, but a divine principle that governs the way Allah interacts with His creation. Every trial you face, no matter how painful or overwhelming it may feel, has already been measured precisely for your capacity. Allah knows your strength even when you doubt it. He knows what you can endure, what will break you for the sake of rebuilding you, and what will stretch your soul just enough to lead you closer to Him. You are never tested randomly, and you are never given more than your heart, soul, and faith can carry. This understanding should completely shift the way we perceive our trials. Instead of feeling crushed under the weight of hardship, we begin to see that we were chosen to carry it, not because we are weak, but because Allah knows there is hidden strength within us that even we have not yet discovered. The test is not a sign of our weakness, but a sign of Allah's trust in our potential. He knows that by facing it, we will grow, we will purify, and we will unlock the depths of our patience, resilience, and sincerity. That is why no two people are tested in exactly the same way. What breaks one person may build another. What is difficult for one soul may be easy for another. Allah tailors each test specifically for the individual, with full knowledge of their heart, their past, their limitations, and their future. Sometimes the pain feels unbearable. The trial seems unending. You wonder how you'll survive the day, let alone the future. But in those moments, you must remind yourself, if this test came your way, it is already proof that you have what it takes to get through it. Allah does not make mistakes. He does not forget. He does not overlook. There is no suffering that escapes His knowledge, and no tear that falls without being seen. He does not test you to destroy you, but to prepare you. You may not feel ready, but Allah knows your soul was created with the tools it needs to navigate this specific moment in your life. You were created with sabr that hasn't been fully activated yet. You were created with strength that is only now being revealed through pressure. You were created with the ability to rise, to reflect, and to rebuild. There are times when we compare ourselves to others and ask why we seem to face more than they do. But comparison is a deception. You do not know the battles others are facing behind closed doors. You do not know what Allah has protected you from in His unseen mercy. What appears easier for someone else may be a completely different test for them. Their ease may be testing their gratitude or humility, just as your hardship is testing your patience or trust. What matters is not how our test compares to others, but how we respond to the one Allah has given us. The responsibility is personal, the journey is individual, and the capacity is custom-made. Even the prophets, the best of creation, were tested in proportion to their incredible strength and unwavering faith. Prophet Nadino Sangafondas preached for 950 years with very few followers, yet remained patient. Prophet Ibrahim bin Uisi was tested with his family, his safety, and his deepest attachments. Prophet Muhammad Af, despite being the most beloved to Allah, faced rejection, loss, hunger, persecution, and heartbreak. If they were tested, not because they sinned, but because they were loved, how can we expect to live without trials? Their stories remind us that being tested is not a sign of punishment, a sign of spiritual significance. They were not given ease all the time, but they were given the strength to endure. And that strength came from Allah. When you feel like your trial is too big, too painful, or too long, remember that the one who gave it to you is the same one who is sustaining you through it. He has not left you alone. He is with you in the silence, in the nights, in the private moments of grief that no one else sees. He is closer to you than your own thoughts, and He knows your every breath, every ache, every prayer whispered through tears. And with that perfect knowledge, He has decreed this specific test for you, not to break you but to elevate you, not to humiliate you but to purify you, not to punish you, but to awaken something deep within you that will lead you closer to Him and closer to your true purpose. The pain may last for a while, but the strength, the reward, and the closeness to Allah that comes with it will remain forever. The people most beloved to Allah were the ones tested the most. This is one of the most powerful realities in our faith, yet also one of the most difficult to internalize. When someone is facing hardship after hardship, they often begin to wonder why. They question their worth, their efforts, and sometimes even their faith. But if we turn to the lives of the prophets and righteous servants of Allah, we see that tests were not part of their journey. They were essential to it. Their struggles were not signs of failure, but signs of divine selection. The closer someone is to Allah, the more refined and purified they must become, and that refinement happens through the heat of trials, the pressure of difficulties, and the intensity of pain. It is in those moments that Allah molds a soul to its highest potential. The Prophet Muhammad himself was the most beloved of all creation to Allah, yet his life was filled with loss, rejection, poverty, and emotional pain. He lost his parents at a young age, then his beloved wife Khadija and his children. He faced mockery, physical attacks, betrayal by his own people, and constant pressure from those who tried to stop his mission. But he never wavered in faith. His connection to Allah only deepened with every hardship. His tears in the night were not a sign of weakness but of love, humility, and unwavering trust. If the most perfect human being faced such profound difficulty, how can we, as his followers, expect to be spared from being tested? Prophet AWWW endured the loss of his health, wealth, and children. His body became so ill that people could no longer bear to be around him. Yet his heart remained pure. He never complained. He never questioned Allah's decree. He simply said, "Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." And because of his patience, Allah restored everything he lost and more. His story teaches that trials are not just tests of endurance but of loyalty. They expose whether we worship Allah for his blessings or for his essence. When everything is taken away, what remains is what truly matters. The relationship between the servant and the Lord. Prophet Yusuf HWWF was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a well, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. He spent years away from his father and lived in uncertainty, yet never let bitterness enter his heart. He remained truthful, grateful, and committed to his values, his dignity in the face of injustice. His trust in Allah in the darkest of circumstances became the reason for his eventual rise in honor. His story is a reminder that the tests of the righteous often come not just from strangers but from those closest to them, and yet their character remains intact. These prophets were not chosen to be tested because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to carry a message to the world. Their pain was a part of their preparation. Their heartbreak was a path to spiritual elevation. Their suffering became a source of healing for generations after them. When we read their stories, it becomes clear that proximity to Allah does not guarantee comfort. It guarantees purpose. Every test they endured had a meaning, a lesson, and a reward. Nothing they experienced was in vain, and nothing you experience is in vain either. In your own life, when you are faced with waves of trials, you must remember that it could be a sign of your closeness to Allah, not your distance. He does not waste the pain of those he loves. He refines their souls like gold in fire. He allows them to feel the emptiness of this world so that their hearts can be filled only with him. Every tear shed, every prayer whispered, every moment of patience is being recorded, honored, and elevated. You may not understand it now, but you are being drawn closer to something greater than what this world can offer. The struggle is shaping you into someone whose heart is more connected, whose purpose is clearer, and whose hereafter is brighter. The ones closest to Allah have always faced the greatest storms, not because they were being punished, because they were being prepared for something magnificent. When you are tested, remind yourself of their stories, their pain, their patience, their unwavering trust in the face of unimaginable difficulty. They were human like you, with emotions, weaknesses, and fears. But their faith carried them, and that same faith can carry you. Their stories are not just for reading. They are for living, for embodying, and for drawing strength from in the darkest of times. The path to Allah has always passed through hardship, but it is also the path of the most beloved souls to ever walk this earth.